We're building this incredible world run by autonomous systems. We've got cars that drive themselves, AI helping doctors save lives. It's a huge leap forward. But what happens when one of these AIs makes a mistake? And I mean a fatal one. Suddenly, our legal system just hits a wall. It was never built for a world where the one at fault isn't even human. So the big question is, who's on the hook? Who paid the price? All right, so how are we going to crack this case? Here's the plan. First, we'll dive into the problem itself, what's called the AI responsibility gap. Then we'll look at who could be held liable, the usual suspects, if you will. After that, we'll see how different parts of the world are handling this, check out some real-world cases, and finally, we'll get to the ultimate kind of philosophical question at the heart of it all. Okay, let's start at the beginning. You could almost think of this as a crime scene, but it's a really weird one. The harm is crystal clear, but there's no human culprit in sight. I mean, think about it. A self-driving car crashes. A medical AI messes up a diagnosis. Who's legally responsible? And this isn't some far-off sci-fi problem. These are the exact questions hitting courtrooms today. See, our whole legal system is based on a really simple idea. Someone does something, and that action causes harm. It's a straight line. But with AI, that line gets all tangled and blurry, and sometimes it just disappears. And there's actually a name for this problem. Legal experts call it the responsibility gap. It's not just some little loophole we can patch up. Nope, this is a fundamental problem created by the AI technology itself. And it really boils down to two core issues that are, frankly, shaking our justice system to its core. So just try to put yourself in the shoes of someone who's been harmed. On one hand, you've got this issue of unpredictability. The AI learns, it evolves, it does things its own creators never saw coming. So how can you blame them? Then on the other hand, you have the famous black box problem. The AI's decision-making process is so insanely complex that even its developers can't look inside and tell you exactly why it did what it did. This is a total nightmare for a victim. How are you supposed to prove your case in court if nobody can even explain what went wrong? So, if the old rulebook is basically useless here, what are the solutions on the table? Let's bring in the suspects, so to speak, and see how we might be able to pin down accountability and close this responsibility gap for good. And right away, we hit this massive fork in the road. It's really a clash of two completely different philosophies. First, you've got what's called strict liability. It's simple. The manufacturer is on the hook, no matter what. The good thing is, victims get paid. The bad thing, it might totally scare companies away from developing new AI. The other option is the old-school negligence model. Here, the victim has to prove the developer was careless. But like we just said, with a black box AI, that's almost impossible. So this is more than just a legal argument. It's a huge policy choice. Do we protect the victims, or do we protect innovation? Now, of course, people are trying to find a middle ground. One idea is distributed liability. Basically, you spread the blame around to everyone involved, the data providers, the developers, even the user. Another one is vicarious liability, where you treat the AI like an employee, and its owner, the company that deployed it, is responsible. But you know what's interesting? Almost every single one of these proposals has one thing in common: mandatory insurance. The idea is to create a safety net, a pool of money, so that no matter who's legally to blame, the person who got hurt actually gets help. And then you get to the really wild, out there proposals. The most radical one? Just give the AI itself some kind of legal status, kind of like a company has. I know, it sounds like something out of a movie. But as this quote points out, most experts are pretty freaked out by this idea. They see it as creating the ultimate loophole, a perfect way for humans to dodge all responsibility. It would be the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card. Okay, so this isn't just a debate for lawyers and tech nerds. This whole thing is playing out on the world stage. And when you zoom out, you can see three very different and very competitive approaches starting to form. And yeah, when you lay it all out like this, it really does look like a global chess match over the future of AI. You've got the EU, which is all about protecting people's rights with its big AI Act. Then you have the US, which is way more market-driven, kind of hands-off, trying not to stifle innovation. And then there's China, which is taking a very top-down, state-controlled approach that's all about security and stability. We're talking three major powers with three totally different game plans. And this isn't just some academic or political debate. This divergence, what some people call the balkanization of AI, has huge real-world consequences. It means a single company might have to basically re-engineer its AI from the ground up to be legal in Europe, then do it again for the US and again for China. It's like your software needs 3 different passports to cross digital borders. It's a massive headache and could seriously fracture how AI develops globally. All right, enough with the high-level theory and geopolitics. Let's bring this back down to earth to where the rubber really meets the road. We're going to look at the evidence from the front lines, where these questions are being tested right now, with actual lives on the line. And ground zero for this whole legal battle? It's autonomous vehicles. I mean, the incidents are just piling up. U.S. regulators have received reports of thousands of crashes involving these automated driving systems. And every single one of those crashes is another test case, another stress test for a legal system that's just struggling to keep pace. You see it in these high-profile, tragic cases, like the fatal Tesla autopilot crash involving Walter Huang. The investigation was pretty clear. The car's collision warning and emergency braking just didn't work, a clear system failure. And yet, figuring out who's legally to blame is so much more complicated. So often, the blame ends up falling back on the human driver for not paying enough attention, even though the whole point of the system is to do the driving for you. But now, check this out. In medicine, something totally fascinating is happening. Basically, the complete opposite. We've been talking about what happens when AI gets it wrong. But in medicine, AI is getting so good, especially at diagnostics, that the legal standard of care is actually starting to flip. We're getting to a point where a doctor who ignores what the AI is telling them, and the AI turns out to be right, well, that doctor could be the one who gets sued for negligence. The tool is becoming so reliable, it's becoming required. So with all this chaos and uncertainty, a really interesting new player is stepping onto the field. The insurance industry. They are creating brand new kinds of policies for risks that we literally never even thought about a few years ago. Things like getting sued because your algorithm is biased or your AI starts hallucinating and making things up. And by doing this, the insurance companies are basically becoming the new regulators. Think about it. If they won't write you a policy for your AI, you can't risk deploying it. They're setting the safety bar for the entire industry just by deciding what they're willing to cover. Okay, so we've looked at the tech, the law, the real-world cases, and it all brings us to the final verdict. This is where we have to zoom out and ask some really deep, fundamental questions. This is where the investigation gets philosophical. You'll hear this term thrown around a lot: meaningful human control. It's this core idea that no matter how smart the AI gets, a human has to be the one who's ultimately in control and ultimately responsible. And look, it sounds great, right? It's comforting. But as we've already seen with self-driving cars, that human in the loop can be the weakest link, often put in a position where it's impossible for them to succeed. It's a nice principle, but in reality, it's not so simple. And that really brings us to the absolute heart of the matter. Can a machine ever be truly responsible for what it does? I mean, our entire idea of justice, of blame, is built for humans. It's based on things like consciousness, free will, a sense of right and wrong. We're trying to apply that whole framework to a machine that has, well, none of that. It's like getting mad at your calculator for making a mistake. It just doesn't compute. So does it even make sense to talk about a machine being responsible? And that leads us to a really powerful final thought. Maybe we've been looking at this all wrong. Maybe the goal isn't to find one single person, one single culprit to blame. As this quote here suggests, maybe the real challenge is to turn this responsibility gap into a responsibility network, a system where everyone, the policymakers, the developers, the companies using the AI, the insurers, they all work together to make sure our autonomous future is a safe one. So the ultimate question isn't who's to blame for what just happened. The real question we need to answer is, how do we build a system of shared responsibility to make sure we're safe for whatever comes next?